What's good, YouTube, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about how to IGL, and by the end of this video you'll understand what the job of an IGL is, what the different roles are that an IGL plays, the different types of IGLs there are, and the fundamentals you need to have to be an IGL. First off, the role of the IGL is going to be to not only call the strats in the game, but lead in mid rounds and also leave opportunities for your teammates to be able to feed information to you and create a plan that works with your team, not just that works in your head. One of the things you need to do to build a good team is you need to let your teammates know that they can be vocal and have a say in what is going to happen in the round. So you don't really want to be the IGL that off the start of the round, you're calling everything that's going to happen in the round, and regardless what information your teammates give out or give out on what previous rounds the other team have been doing, you want to take all of that into account. You don't want to sit here and kind of be that super strict caller that a lot of people don't want to play under. And sometimes that will work. There are callers in tier 1 that do IGL like that are very strict in how they call and they don't leave a ton of input from their players. But generally that doesn't work. You want to have all 5 players communicating, functioning in a team setting rather than just having one guy lead the entire team. So another job the IGL has in the team is to essentially not tilt and be that leader who can motivate your players. If I'm playing under an IGL and he's constantly frustrated and he's constantly saying we're not doing what he wants, and he's constantly kind of just like upset, right? I'm going to feel a lot more constricted in what I can do, because now not only do I need to play my own game, I need to play a game that will make my caller happy, because if he's not happy, he's going to sit here, get more frustrated, potentially mess up calls, etc., etc. So one of the jobs the caller has is to keep a very solid stature and be that kind of person that their teammates can lean on. If you're down, let's say 9-5 in a game and you're on a really important round, do you think you're gonna win that round more if your caller is sitting there all frustrated and making a call like really based on emotion, or he's making a call that he's trying to take emotion out of and he's making just a solid call that makes sense? One of the reasons why this is really big is because you don't want emotion to factor into how you play or how you call. If you let, as an individual player, if you let emotion factor into how you play, you're not going to be able to play consistent from game to game to game, because you're going to have different emotions in each game. If you're a caller and you let emotion affect how you play, not only will it affect you, it will also affect your calls and how your team plays. And keep in mind, this is a team game. As an individual player, letting emotions affect you generally won't have the same impact as being a caller and letting emotions affect you. This will sometimes lead to the kind of like tilt rush B calls, you know what I mean? But at a higher level, it's not necessarily going to be, a rush B. But let's say caller's tilted, he doesn't want to have to micromanage around, he doesn't want to have to call anything crazy, and he's just upset, hey guys, do this set execute, right? Do you think he put the most thought he could into that call, or is he doing it because he's frustrated and he doesn't care anymore? You see what I'm saying? It's a very tight balance to have where you want emotions to feed into your gameplay and hype up your team, but you don't want your emotions to sit there and also nerf your team. The other job an IGL has is to also do homework. So at lower levels, let's say open, intermediate, main, and sometimes even advanced, it doesn't make a ton of sense to be anti-stratting all the teams you play, because a lot of times these teams are just, friends who hop on, who are on a team and just want to play together for fun. But if you're taking it seriously, you do want to do your homework on the other teams. Again, sometimes it's harder in lower levels, and sometimes doing anti-stratting work against lower level teams will actually hurt you more than help you. But once you get to that level of, let's say, like advanced or ECL, doing homework is a must. You need to know what the other team has, what they're going to do, what their tendencies are, what each individual player likes to do in their default spots. There's a ton of things you need to factor into how you're going to play a game. And what do you think will help you the most? Watching a demo and being prepared, or not watching a demo and not being prepared, right? It's a very simple concept. Doing your homework doesn't always mean anti-stratting, right? It could also mean watching pro matches. Let's say you guys are struggling on your A executes, or you're struggling on your mid takes. You're going to be watching pro demos specifically for taking mid, or specifically for when teams go A, and you can be looking at the executes that they throw, what the padding is, what flashes they throw, what are they hard clearing, what is their goal in the post plant. All these things are things you need to iron out in your strats to give you the best chance of actually winning those rounds. Another thing that's important is you don't want to be the strat in the hat caller. And basically, I'll explain very bluntly what a strat in the hat caller is. This is essentially what it is. Hey guys, start of the round. What are we going to do this round? You pick a paper out of the hat. Oh, guys, we're doing an A exec. You don't want to be that caller, because not only will your teammates not feel like you're doing something that is based on the other team. You're kind of just calling strat. It also means that you're not really doing anything based on the other team. If you call a strat in a round that makes sense, let's say the other team is not playing too much on A, that means you want to do an A execute and try and take space for the post plant, then cool, do an A execute. That sounds great. However, if there's no reason or no tell for you to do an A execute and you call an A execute, the rest of your team is going to be like, sure, but why? Basically, you want to have strats for reactions and based on things that the other team does, but you don't want to have strats as necessarily your default round. Again, if I know a team is playing 3A a lot and they don't have a fast B rotate and the cat player, let's say, gets into ladder every round, this is a mistake because that means that he's soloed in ladder. The B player is solo as well. They have slow rotates and we can just do a cat split, go B, take B site and win the round. This is a round where I would call a cat split. This is not a round where I would call, let's say, a mid default into an A split because, yeah, cool, we took mid, but there's going to be 3 towards A. There's all these little things that factor into how you should call, if you should call a default, if you should call a strat, what strat you should be calling. You need to have reasons for everything you do as a caller. If you do what you do as a caller based off of emotion or based off of I felt like it, then you will be an inconsistent caller. You will be hurting your team. Now, these reasons for the basis of what your calls are need to be based off of theory. And what I mean by theory is I have gone over it in my previous videos in my How to Play at a High Level series. But basically, map theory should be ruling how you call. Everything should have a reason. Everything should have a basis for you calling it. And if it doesn't, then you need to figure out a reason why or change the call. Let me use this as an example. Generally on Mirage, you have a B player, a cat player, let's say a window player, a con player, and an A player. If the CT stay in this setup for too long, that means that if you split A, all the players are going to be split up. There's going to be one player in con you can isolate. There's one player on A site you can isolate. And this guy, if you smoke jungle or you smoke spawn when he's rotating, he is isolated from the rest of his team. You just have, let's say, a 2v1 or a 3v1 in con and a 2v1 or a 3v1 on A site. You should be winning this round if you try and do an A split or a hard A exec. Let's say the other team is playing a setup where they have 1 B, 1 up cat, and they're playing 3 towards A. Let's say there's a guy opping spawn, a guy under palace, and a guy sitting towards jungle holding top con and window boost. This means you should be doing a cat split most likely, or doing some sort of fake, like you're going to go A to keep this player here from fast rotating, and then you end up going cat towards B. Again, a 2v1 or a 3v1 on the cat player, or a 2v1 or a 3v1 on the B player if you do a split. This is pretty base level Mirage, but this is extremely important for making your calls. If you watch any pro game, this is what callers will be using to base how they're going to split a site or what they're going to do off of a default. They throw some sort of fake to guarantee that some player has to hold a certain position, and then they go to the other side of the map. Sometimes they will do double fakes, sometimes they will even do triple fakes. But the basis behind a fake is you're trying to keep a rotate somewhere so that they are not rotating to the site you want to go to quick enough. Now, this goes for every map. Let's say it's Anubis, and I know that the other team is starting 2 towards mid, they have 2 towards B, and they have one guy playing somewhere over on A. This is a pretty standard setup. Generally, how Anubis functions is you have a mid player, you have a mid to B rotate who floats between here, and then 2 B players. What you should do when the other team is starting their 2 players over towards mid is you kind of want to pressure mid to keep them 2 on mid, and then you can just end up going towards B because there's only 2 B. And if there's only 2 B, it's a lot harder to hold the site than if the rotate were to come in and help with the site hold. You can pressure mid by smoking house and mauling the doors. You can pressure mid by taking this space, smoking this, mauling this, and then dropping down E-box and going B when, again, there are only 2 towards B. But like I said, this concept goes for every single map in the map pool, and it is such an important tool in your arsenal as a caller. If you cannot call defaults like this, you are going to be going to sites where the CTs are stacked, because then you will be telegraphed, and this mid to B float will be going to exactly where you are. If you guys end up committing to mid, they're 2 on mid, this is bad for you. If you guys go B and you didn't throw a mid fake, then he's going to be rotated over here. There's going to be 3B, this is bad for you. So a big part of calling off of a default is doing some sort of misdirection to try and not telegraph everything that you're doing. The next thing I want to talk about is what roles do IGLs normally play. So it depends map to map. There's certain callers that will play more floater roles. There are certain callers that will play more aggressive roles, always in the action. I prefer to be always in the action just because I would have the most information. And when you have another player in the action and you're trying to call based off his information, it will be slightly delayed because the information that you're getting is not only delayed because he has to comment, whereas you could just get the information and make a call, whereas now you have to get the information, then make the call. You are also getting the information that is digested by your teammates. So let's say you are the caller and you are mid, and there is a tell that there are 2 mid, and you say, hey, we should probably go B. If I have a different player in mid, he might not know what information is needed to make a good call, so he might just be calling the util. Let's say there's a tell that there's 2 mid, one of the CTs mollied the doors, and one of them naded house. This is a tell that there's 2 mid. Let's say your teammate didn't pick up on that. Now you're getting a somewhat digested call by your teammate that is not actually true. And yes, this comes with trusting your teammates. If you are going to play out of the action, you need to trust your teammates a lot in the information that they're giving. And not only that, but the read that they have on the game, you have to trust a lot. But that's why I like to play in the action when I'm a caller. Let's say I am defaulting on Anubis. I'm going to be going towards mid. I'm going to try and get as much information I can in mid, and then I will make a call immediately based off of what I think the other team is doing to either take some sort of space or go to the right site where they're not stacked. I don't need to take the time to hear the information and then give the call. I don't risk potentially getting bad information if my teammate has a wrong read on the situation. I am the one making the call. I have the quickest reaction to the call because I am in the action, and I don't have to rely on my teammate or trust my teammate to be able to give proper information for a call. And as a non-IGL, that player might not know what information is needed for you to make a call. Building off of this, if you are going to be playing out of the action, you need your entire team to know what the theory you guys want to run by. So again, like I was saying earlier, with the way that Anubis functions, I need to tell them that there's going to be 2 B players, 2 mid players / a mid to B float, and an A player. If this is the blueprint of the round that we have, then we're going to be looking for ways to abuse this kind of setup, abuse this rotator. At higher levels, this setup on CT side is something that a lot of players already know about. So this is something that you kind of only have to tell players who are either new to the game, or even if you're a caller and you're watching this, this is probably the fundamental basis you should have for the way you run your default rounds. And you shouldn't necessarily run the default rounds on the way you want to, but on the way that the other teams are playing. This doesn't mean that as soon as you know that there's 2 mid, you instantly execute B. Now that you have this basis of information, you can run a fake like I was talking about earlier. Let's say you run a B fake and you start throwing nades and everything, and you bait this rotate into rotating over. Now you can walk on mid, and let's say you have 3 people walking mid. It is a 3v1 in mid. You should be winning this fight, or at least taking this sort of control so that you can split A, or even pressure this guy to rotate back and now drop down canals and go B. There's a lot of options you have once you understand what this rotate is doing, and this should be the goal of your default, is to figure out what setup they're in and where the rotate is. Anyway, that's all for today's video, and I probably will do an IGL series where I go over how to call, good ways to call, and more map specific stuff. I have already gone over map theory in my how to play at a high level video. I'll go ahead and link it somewhere over here, but I hope you guys found this useful. And if you guys want any coaching, go ahead and check out my Metafy. I'll link it down below. I coach Monday through Friday over on my stream. I'll go ahead and link that down below as well. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.